Hey everybody, I'm still doing some tweaking on my mobile setup, and so continue to give me that feedback in the comments section below, and I'll try to incorporate that feedback in the tweaking I'm doing for the audio. But I think for the most part, I'm getting pretty close to where it needs to be to sound about as good as it's going to sound for when I'm traveling, because I definitely want to have a better mobile setup than what I've had. And I've been doing a lot of traveling, and so there have been huge breaks in my content creation. And I really don't want to have that because there's a lot of things that I want to talk about, and some of these things are time sensitive. So with that said, let's talk about the real subject of this video, which is Julian Assange and the Fourth Estate. As most people know by now, Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, has been arrested in the Ecuadorian embassy in the United Kingdom. It's also my understanding that he's already been dragged before a judge regarding bail. However, let me show you in a single screenshot why everybody should be up in arms about the witch hunt of Julian Assange. This is a Google search for the Gateway Pundit. Now, the reason I was looking for the Gateway Pundit on Google is because they actually have the article that I was going to use inside this video. And I figured, you know what, the fastest way to find it, go ahead and do a Google internet search. So that's what I did. So if you see the first hit, it's the Gateway Pundit Wikipedia, which identifies the Gateway Pundit as a far-right news and opinion website. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is that there are massive feminist groups, or I should say massive numbers of feminist groups that have been editing the Gateway Pundit in order to basically push their socialist leftist propaganda and to misinform people about certain organizations and subjects that are covered by Wikipedia. Now, in addition to that, then they have Jim Hoft from the Gateway Pundit. And then, of course, we have MediaBiasFactCheck.com. And of course, they say that the Gateway Pundit is an extreme right news and opinion site that is not afraid of conspiracy theories and the occasional publication of falsehoods. Anybody get an idea of where we're going here yet? I mean, we've got the Wikipedia page, which is the leftist propaganda page. We've got Media Bias Fact Check. And then, of course, we have some information here from Steve King, which looks like it's a letter from Jim Hoft, the owner-editor of the Gateway Pundit. Then we have Rational Wiki, which again talks about how the Gateway Pundit is a far-right website. And then, of course, we have Pundit Fact PolitiFact, again, another left-wing truth-sayer propaganda site. Of course, another PolitiFact site. And then we've got the Daily Beast, of course, which is another left-wing site. And then we have allsides.com, which is a bias rating site, apparently. And then we have the Gateway Pundit hashtag on Twitter. Now, if you'll notice organically in this list, the Gateway Pundit doesn't fucking appear anywhere. Now, it's on the right-hand side, as you can see. It's got the website that's right here. And of course, they have other searches. When you're searching for the Gateway Pundit, there are other news sources you can search for. But it's not actually featured here at all. Nowhere on page 1 of Google is the Gateway Pundit featured. And then Google goes to Congress and says, oh no, we don't manually edit our searches to take out conservative sites. We don't target conservative sites. Here's a perfect example right here. Okay? This is why we need the Fourth Estate. This is why we need investigative journalism. This is exactly why we need to stand in opposition of witch hunts like the one that occurred against Julian Assange. Okay? Gateway Pundit, a actual credible news source, is being listed as a conspiracy site and is basically been, for all intents and purposes, delisted organically on page 1 of Google and is only in the right sidebar. And this is on the desktop version of Google. Who knows what it looks like on the mobile version when you search for the Gateway Pundit? Now, it should be on page 1. There should be a listing. In fact, it should be the very top. If Google was committed to verifiable facts and observable reality, then the Gateway Pundit should be exactly on top. Again, this is an example of Google and other socialist tech companies like them censoring the free press. If Google was honest with its search results rather than algo censoring sites it doesn't like, then the Gateway Pundit, like I said before, would be first in the search results. Okay? There's a full page of listings here that are not the Gateway Pundit. They don't even go to the Gateway Pundit domain. It's over here on the right, and you actually have to click the right in order to do it. And again, I'm just saying that's a problem. It should show up organically. Absolutely. Now, the other concern that I have is this. Again, the Gateway Pundit, and this is their article from today. Urgent breaking, Ecuador caves to U.S. government, hands over Julian Assange to U.K. authorities inside the embassy. Then we're going to touch on some of the highlights here. Okay, there's a picture of him getting drug out. This is from Ruppli, which is Russia Today's site, or I should say is like their news source. Their Ruppli video crews go around and they videotape everybody. He's got a beard. He's been growing it for a while, apparently, because he's been there since 2012. Of course, we got a little image here of Fat Lives Matter, so made a video about that. I will say, though, as far as the keto diet is concerned, as a complete aside, it does work. I've seen it help a lot of people. I'm currently on like 90% keto right now, and it's helping me a lot. So with that said, let's jump into the article. Assange has been living in the embassy since 2012, when he was granted asylum. On Thursday evening, WikiLeaks had tweeted that a high-level source within the Ecuadorian state has informed the publisher that he will be expelled within hours to days over the INA Papers offshore scandal as an excuse. On March 26th, the official WikiLeaks Twitter account posted about it and stated that Moreno is attempting to hand over Assange in exchange for U.S. debt relief, a fact which was reported by the New York Times. The Ecuadorian government used fake evidence that WikiLeaks was involved in the release of the INA Papers leak. In reality, the WikiLeaks Twitter account had only announced that their president, Lenin Moreno, is being investigated by Ecuador's Congress for corruption. On April 1st, Ecuador submitted a request to the United Nations Rapporteur on Privacy to take urgent measures in response to the INA Papers publication listing WikiLeaks as the responsible party. This is a lie. Now, why am I talking about WikiLeaks at this late date, and what does that have to do with the relevance of my particular channel? Well, it's actually the circumstances surrounding why Julian Assange was arrested or at least had to seek asylum in the first place. And that is this right here, and this is from Zero Hedge. And this is one of the updates. Swedish prosecutors have reopened their preliminary investigation into allegations of rape made by two women against Assange that were the initial reason why he sought asylum in the embassy. After a lawyer for one of the women requested that Swedish prosecutors revisit the case, which we reported earlier, the prosecutor's office has affirmed that it will be reopened. They didn't give a deadline for the probe. Now, for those who don't know, Julian Assange was one of the original Me Too witch hunt victims before this feminist campaign grew into its own monster. It's important to reiterate to everyone that the women Assange was originally accused of sexually assaulting had actually consented to have sex with him. They've even publicly admitted it multiple times. You see, Julian Assange isn't even being charged with any kind of sexual assault without consent. He's being criminally accused of not wearing a condom. Now, it's important to note that neither of the two women that were involved in this case suffered any sort of STD or pregnancy from their sexual contact with Assange. However, the feminist Swedish government is still investigating him anyway. The feminist Swedish government can't be bothered to investigate the epidemic levels of Middle Eastern and North African migrant gang rapists. But damn it, they got to investigate the white guy because he had consensual sex. You know, this is just one more of the many indefensible hypocrisies of feminism. Now, what's most important about this case is that Assange was investigated 3 separate times previously for sexually assaulting these two women, I should say, and never was formally or criminally charged for any crime. Yet the reason that Assange sought asylum in the first place is because the Swedish government, without filing any criminal charges against him, they just issued a warrant for his arrest because, reasons. The reason that this is important to note is because this is an example of feminist justice in action. To wrongfully jail an innocent man and to witch hunt him for years, all because he didn't wear a condom before he engaged in consensual sex. Remember, he's been in the Ecuadorian embassy since 2012. He had to seek refuge there because he was going to get arrested. They accused him of not having consensual sex, in effect sexual assault, because he didn't wear a condom. He actually had consensual sex. These women admitted he had consensual sex, yet he didn't wear a condom. So apparently not wearing a condom is rape or something. The reality, though, is that this is clearly a false allegation. Yet it is the excuse that everyone is using to witch hunt and discriminate against him. Now, this is the type of dirty trick used by socialist and feminist governments to witch hunt and silence men. Now, in this case, the man is a member of the Fourth Estate, the free press. The same types of dirty tricks employed by the Me Too movement and their socialist tech sponsors like Google, Facebook, and Twitter are the same types of things we're seeing here today. The problem is, without an uncensored free press that objectively reports the news instead of focusing on partisan attacks against anyone who speaks out against socialist and communist bigotry, we have no free press at all. The witch hunt of Julian Assange marks a very dark time for both the freedom of speech and the freedom of press. Remember, if socialist bigots can do this to Julian Assange, then they can do this to anyone engaged in casual sex with a woman or even a man. But I'll bet money that these women, the women who accuse Julian Assange of sexual assault or lack of wearing a condom, like the women of the #MeToo movement, I'll put money on it that these women were paid for their false allegations. And as a final point, this is also why smart men are avoiding relationships with women, and it's why companies like my sponsor, The Dollhouse, will continue to grow. I'm DDJ, and this has been your dose of misandry today.